So today we'll be doing a JWE3 speculation video on which species we think might come out in the sequel. Now, rather than do this like I did the bingo cards, so yeah, we're doing this as bingo cards because it's funny. And rather than do it like we did the bingo cards for JWE2 DLC, we're gonna split it up into two. We're gonna do the bingo card that shows what I want in the game, and the bingo card that shows what I expect to be in the game, right? So that's the format here. That's why there's two of these. So to start with, we're gonna start with obvious shit. I think it's highly likely that the sequel will introduce mammals. Uh, Primarily because it's an easy selling point for something they haven't done before, right? GW2 introduced aquatics, so they need a hook animal wise for the third game, mammals. Smilodon's in the franchise because of Camp Cretaceous, so there's also the hook there of like, you know, what the mammal's going to be, right? So Smilodon, obvious inclusion. So that'll be our first bingo card thing here. So I'm just gonna, let's put it, there's an S over here. This seems like a good starting spot. It's fine. Doesn't really matter where this goes. Um, Boom, Smilodon. Lock. So now we could put in a bunch of mammals on this bingo card. I don't want to sit here and like guess like the 5 or 10 mammals that'll be in base game. So I've opted for 3 mammals. So we'll cover those first. Next obvious one is woolly mammoth, right? Woolly mammoth, popular prehistoric Pleistocene, whatever mammal. Makes perfect sense. It's got a tiny franchise connections because there's like Mammoth Bones and Wu's Lab, and I think in Camp Cretaceous. I think that's in season 1. So mammoth is the next obvious choice. Mammuthus, woolly mammoth. Let's put it here. I don't want the mammals in the same row. Like, I don't want to get close to a bingo just because mammals do make it into the game. So we're gonna do that like that. Mammoth. Next. So the third mammal I'm gonna think is in the game /1 in the game. I'm not gonna like differentiate the mammals because I really don't care about mammals. I don't really want mammals in the game. I just expect them to be, and I don't want to like not put mammals on my wish list card. I mean, there's an argument for that, right? Because I don't want these in the game. Why are they on my wish list? The thing is, like, there's some pairing here. Like the way I've formatted this, it's a lot of animals that like. Okay, the sequel will probably at some point in base game or in the DLC have a new Ankylosaur, right? What do I want it to be? What do I expect it to be, right? It's not strictly a wish list of like, these are all the things I want. It's like themed, right? Each slot on the bingo card has like a theme to it. So 3 slots are mammals, thus there must be 3 mammals on both bingo cards. There's a few slots that deviate from that. Some of the categories are loose, but that's the idea. So, third one, Megatherium. I don't think personally that there's a slam dunk third mammal here. I've opted for Megatherium because I think sloth is popular. Um, and it's like it strikes like a balance between what I'd like to see, Megatherium, and what I expect to see. Because I think you could also make arguments for like some sort of Glyptodon or like cave bear, cave fucking dog, cave lion, whatever. There's lots of shit you could argue for. Brontotherium, big long neck boys, what the fuck ever. But I think the sloth would be most interesting. So we're gonna do that. Sloth, mammoth, Smilodon. Those placements seem fine. So mammals are out of the way. Let's move on to the cooler shit. Fuck mammals. All my homies hate mammals. We got Beckel-Spinax. This is the obvious one. If any animal is going to be in the sequel, it's going to be Beckel-Spinax, right? So this is our free space. This is like practically fucking guaranteed. And I do want it in the game too. So this is not a case of like, oh, this is guaranteed. I'm just going to put it on my card too because like I want to win. No, I want franchise animals in the franchise game. And that includes the shows. If Beckel-Spinax doesn't make it in, I'll be disappointed. So obvious one out of the way, not much to say there. Now, this is the first time we're going to get a dinosaur that splits the bingo cards. So, Teratophonius. I want this in this goddamn game. This is a canon animal. Its carcass scene here is from Fallen Kingdom. It's in the movie. It's not in a deleted scene. It's next to like the bunker. It was going to have a bigger role in the film, but it was replaced by Allosaurus. But the prop still exists, so it's still fucking canon. I want this in the goddamn game. So if we pull up, I guess this will be no. Let's make this one my bingo card. Sure. I just got to keep these straight in my head. So I want this in the game. Teratophonius is my pick for a larger new carnivore. Now, I don't think they're going to put Teratophonius in the game. I don't think they're going to put an animal in the game based off a carcass, even though it's in the film. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think one of the things that holds Teratophonius back from being included is it's another Tyrannosaurid. And we got a pretty good amount of Tyrannosaurids in the game currently, especially with the bumps from JWE2 with Tarbosaurus and Eutyrannus, and Quanjusaurus, which came out, at the very start. So that's like 3 new Tyrannosaurids, plus we got Albertosaurus and Tyrannosaurus from before. I don't see them realistically putting in Teratophonius. I do think we're due for a large carnivore to be added to the roster. I think this is a really hard one to pick. Like, they could go any direction with this. There's a lot of contenders. I opted for Mapusaurus. I think Mapusaurus is pretty popular. I think they'll pick something that's pretty popular. And it's a chance for them to do like another take on a Giganotosaurus type design, right? Some people don't like the franchise of Giganotosaurus. Some people don't like the Frontier version. They can do another take at like a realistic Giga. So that was my pick. I think you could argue for like all sorts of things. Torvosaurus, any other like large carnivore. So yeah. So Mapu. And we'll put these in the same Mapusaurus. The same tiles. Next, who do I think might come? So this is another split. This is the counterpart to Teratophonius, Pleuropleides, another carcass from Fallen Kingdom. Also seen in the film. This actually shows up pretty prominently in the lava scene. The interesting thing with that, right? Like, so Teratophonius you can kind of ignore. It's not seen so clearly. You could say it's a young Tyrannosaurus or Allosaurus or fucking something, right? It's a carnivore. It's easy to ignore. It could be whatever. This you can't ignore. This is very clearly a Notosaurid. This is very clearly not an Ankylosaurus. And it's very prominent in the film, which means there has to be a canon Notosaurid, even if it's not Pleuropleides. The Holoscape has Hoplitosaurus as the Notosaurid. I don't know if the DPG list even has a Notosaurid on it, which if it doesn't is a huge oversight. Like, there is a film canon Notosaurid. There has to be a film canon Notosaurid. There's no way, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's nothing else that you can, like, you cannot headcanon this as an Ankylosaurus carcass. I'm sorry, you can't. Or Euoplocephalus. So this is my pick for a new Ankylosaurid in the sequel game. You know what? He's a nice counterpart. Let's put him in the same row. Let's put him here. If one makes it, the other probably makes it. So I don't think it's cheating to put him in the same bingo row as a pair. This is not like a full like mammal sweep. I know we said we'd split the mammals up. But I think these two I'm going to put together just because they're more direct counterparts. Boom. And then yeah, for my choice, did I just flash my browser? Probably. It's fine. Okay, no, that's off on the side. It's nothing sensitive, but I just don't want to fucking put. I don't want to worry about there actually being something sensitive on there. There shouldn't be. Not doing any weird shit or my taxes or nothing. But okay. Anyway, my pick for what I think will actually make it into the game for an Ankylosaurid. I think Stegoros is a likely pick. So this is from Jurassic World Alive. So the thing with Stegoros, relatively recent discovered animal, was really like popular and exciting when it was discovered. It's an ankylosaurid with this like interesting axe tail kind of configuration instead of the traditional club. So very unique. I think it's a very likely pick. The downside, the thing that would hold this back, I think, is that Stegoros is a little on the smaller side, I believe, but I don't think that's gonna stop him. So Stegoros goes there. I don't think the fact that it's in Jurassic World Alive actually increases its odds at all. I've tried to pick some franchise images where appropriate, with some exceptions based on other things. So next we're going to get to a big sticking point in my craw with JWE2, which is we didn't get any new Abelisaurids. So my pick for a new Abelisaurid is Rugops. Why Rugops? Because it sounds cool. Also, it's part of the Indominus genome, and its size would separate it from Majungasaurus and Carnotaurus in game, having the smaller Abelisaurid. So I think that's dope. Rugops can go here, sure. Do I think we're going to get Rugops? Not necessarily. I wouldn't be surprised if we got Rugops. This is what I'd really debated on. This is kind of one where, like, instead of putting the same animal on both bingo cards, I wanted to differentiate it just cause. So I racked my brain. I'm like, what other Abelisaurid could they pick? If they're going to ignore, say, the Indominus genome, right? They're going to ignore and not use Rugops just to differentiate it. What would it be? So I think the other likely Abelisaurid, I think it's kind of an even split between these two, would be Rajasaurus because of Prehistoric Planet, right? This is a little more in the public consciousness. People like the depiction of Rajasaurus in Prehistoric Planet. So I can see that being done. If I accidentally bring up my browser, does it blink? Maybe. Yeah, it looks like everything blinks off. Well, you can probably see my desktop. So probably nothing relevant there. It's just a fucking mess. So yeah, Rajasaurus goes here. Yep, that's the Abelisaurid of choice. Next up, the other thing that's been bugging me with the sequel, and I guess this is only sort of true. We haven't gotten a new Spinosaurid. Sort of. We got Spinoceratops and we got Spinoraptor. Both of those are hybrids, so fuck those guys. I think Irritator is the lock. It's in the Hammond collection line, which is one reason I want it, because I want all the Hammond collection animals in the game for my own fucking park build nonsense, basically. The other thing with Irritator is it had this recent like study on its jaw that shows that its jaw hinge is like it hinges like outward when it opens its jaw, which some people interpret it as a split jaw. It's not a split jaw. That's as I understand it. Caveat, not a paleontologist. As I understand it, that's completely wrong. That's a misinterpretation of the statement. Instead, it's much more like this art here, where it's like a pelican jaw, where the jaw balloons out at the bottom so that it can like catch fish. And this would make it a really interesting and unique design in the game, right? Because you could have this like fish catching animation where like the jaw balloons out at the bottom like a pelican and it catches shit. That'd be fucking sick. Also, its name is Irritator. That's awesome. People liked Irritator before this update because it's got a cool name. It's got really cool like paleontological backstory of the fossil being like it's like a poached fossil that was like illegally exported, and then like they modified it by like putting more plaster on it to make it look cooler. And then scientists figured out what it was and realized it was cool without the extra shit. And then they had to like deal with all of that mess, and that's why it was irritating. So it's Irritator. So it'd be a fucking if they don't add Irritator to JWE3, this is like other than the things that are very clear locks because they're in film canon, I will be astounded if we never get Irritator. Like, how do we? It's like an iconic dinosaur. Like, how would we not get this? Come on. It's also got a sick mod already in JWE2. So if we don't get it, I guess I got to fall back. So Irritator, pretty good lock. Where should we put Irritator? We need some other stuff in some other corners. Let's put Irritator down here. Irritator. And they can also do like the low sail on the back, like on this art. Um, and like the tadpole tail, right? Because we don't have like a tadpole tailed Spinosaurus in the game, right? All the Spinosaurus designs for at least the base game ones kind of are all, they're from JWE1, so they like predate the tadpole tail Spinosaurus discovery. It's likely that that tadpole tail structure is not unique to Spinosaurus, right? So it's not unreasonable to toss it on Irritator. So this is a chance for them to have like a Spinosaur that shows some of like the updated modern anatomy for Spinosaurus and also has, the cool actual direct features of Irritator present. I think it makes a lot of sense. And then we have whatever this is. Oh yeah, Tanistropheus. So obviously aquatics are a thing in the game. We need new aquatics. I think Tanistropheus is a really good pick. It's a popular animal. It could borrow part of the Nothosaurus rig and animation set, but it differentiates itself from Nothosaurus by having this like really long fucking neck. Uh, my motivations for wanting it are not innocent. I want it because it's in the Kenner toy line, which I adore. Um, so I would like to have all the Kenner species in the game, which is never going to happen because a weird amount of them are like Permian animals. So, but I think this one is pretty likely. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if they overhaul aquatics and water and they like make genuinely like amphibious creatures, right? Then if they do that, they'll want to have more animals to take advantage of the amphibious nature of the game. So you already have like Nothosaurus, Archelon that can leave the water, right? But if it's expanded out where like you don't have these rigid lagoons and you actually put in a real body of water and aquatics will just stay in the water, amphibious creatures will move in and out, and then land creatures just won't go in the deep water. That's kind of what I envision. I really hope they do that. But if they do that, you'll want things to take advantage of it. You'll want Spinosaurids to swim. You'll want other amphibious creatures other than just the two we have. So I think Tanny's a lock in that sense. Tanny, let's put you. Let's go right up here in the postage stamp. Now I think Tanystropheus. I want it because it's in the Kenner toy line, but I also think it's a likely pick for something that is pretty famous and unique and interesting. So it's going on both bingo cards here. I think there's no real competition for other aquatics. The roster we have is pretty good. Like you could say, oh, maybe we'll get a second turtle, maybe we'll get a second shark, but like I don't know if they'll bother, right? Megalodon and Archelon are both like iconic. Like what else are you gonna put in? I doubt it. I doubt we get anything else there. I think we could use another like proper elasmosaurid that doesn't look fucking weird because we only really got sticks. But I don't think there'll be a big push to put a new one in because we already do have 3 long-necked plesiosaurids. So I don't remember if, like the bigger group is elasmosaurids or plesiosaurids, so that's why I said both. I don't know. Next, we need, of course, if we're doing aquatics, we also need to do pterosaurs. So my pick for a new pterosaur is this is Scottish or Gaelic or something. I have no idea how the fuck you actually pronounce this. I'm just going to call it Dirk. So Dirk, Dearc, is a very large ramparinkid. So this is a long-tailed Jurassic pterosaur, of which we only have Dimorphodon in the game currently, and it's like the big gap in the roster, right? We have a huge amount of short-tailed pterosaurs. We really don't need any more. We need long-tailed pterosaurs. So this is my pick. And this is like the largest one. It's a European dinosaur, like, Scottish name because it's from, the British Isles, from Scotland, presumably. I don't actually know where it came from exactly, but presumably it came from Scotland. Otherwise, why is it named after Scottish shit or whatever? And so this is my pick, right? Because it'll be big enough to see it well in the aviary. We got enough small animals in the aviary, really. We need something a little bit larger, so this is that. I don't have on hand here, I don't think I have the size for this guy, but it's a good mid-sized pterosaur, like probably at least in the ballpark of like Tapajara. And of course, the JWE sizes are not like 100% accurate, so they can fudge it a little bit if they want. So I think it's a good pick. I am, however, not confident that it'll actually make it in. Let's put it in the same row as our aquatic. Let's put them right next to each other. What I think they'll do, what I think is more likely for them to actually do is put in the smaller but more famous Ramparhynchus, just the namesake of that lineage. Uh, People would want to see this. It's very iconic. It's like one of the classic pterosaurs, right? This is like it's like Ramparhynchus, Dimorphodon, Pterodactylus, Pteranodon, Quetzalcoatlus. We're missing Pterodactylus. We're missing Ramparhynchus, but I think like the long-tailed Ramparhynchus makes it in over Pterodactylus. Also, Pterodactylus people don't really think about much. They think about Pterodactyl as the whole lineage, and Pterodactylus doesn't get as much action on its own. So yeah, this is the hard part of the video where we figure out how to fuck spell goddamn Ramparhynchus. I think it's RHAMP Ramphorhynchus. Should I spell check it? Let's look it up. Ramphorhynchus. RHAMPHORHYNCHUS. I think I got it right. We just need to expand this down. Move this up. Hell yeah, I actually got it right. That's insane. That's crazy. Okay, what's next? So, next up. Hold on. Okay. Just need to make sure that comes back. Next up is where am I? Next up is this. Lyconops. So, JWE2, in the course of its DLC, introduced Permian animals in the form of, the film canon, Lystrosaurus and Dimetrodon. So it makes sense for them to expand on that a little bit more in the sequel, because it's really underutilized in the first game. Like, we got those two, and they never added any, like, additional ones. I think a Gorgonopsid is, like, a pretty hard lock to see in the sequel. They're pretty popular animals. They're pretty interesting, so I think we're likely to see one. My pick is Lyconops because it's in the Kenner toy line. So that's what we have here. Boom. We'll put this about down here in this corner. Now, Lyconops is not that popular outside of the Kenner toy line. So my expectation is that it won't make it in. Why would they put it in just because it's the Kenner toy line? I think they'll pick possibly Gorgonops because it's the iconic Gorgonopsid because it's Gorgonops, right? It's where the name comes from. Or my actual pick is Inos Transevia, which is the largest one. Inos Transevia has been in the mobile games as well, so it kind of makes sense for that reason. So yeah, that's my lock. Inos Transevia. I think that's correct. I'm not going to spell check that one. I believe. Sometimes we just have to believe it's correct. So that's my lock there. Next is whatever this is. Ah, yes. Another Permian inclusion. So I included 2 Permian animals on this list. So of course I had to pick another Kenner one, right? Like, there's a bunch of Permian Kenner animals. But which one's it going to be? So my pick was Scutosaurus. And there's an extra reason to pick Scuto. So Scutosaurus was dropped from the Jurassic Park line and then actually released in the Lost World line. Same animal, different skin. Or different paint job. So we get this green one here. And then they're actually releasing it in the Hammond collection, which is baffling and weird and confusing. Like, why? Why'd they decide to put this in the Hammond collection? I don't know. But Scutosaurus is pretty unique. It's pretty cool, so I can appreciate it. I'm down. Let's do it. Let's put it in. Scuto, let's put it right next to the other Permian fella, but off to the side instead of in line. Why not? Now, I decided, I think there's another Permian animal that's more likely than Scuto. I think it's an easy include for the game. I expect it to show up. But it's not one that really interests me in general. It's not in the Kenner line, but I think it's likely. And that's a Dilophosaurus. He's the counterpart to Dimetrodon, right? Everybody thinks of Dimetrodon and a Dilophosaurus as the two sailed boys. A Dilophosaurus is an herbivore, though, so that's what really sets it apart. The sail's a little bit different. The body plan's a little bit different. Like, a decently accurate Dilophosaurus alongside a Dimetrodon, it's pretty distinctive. So that's my pick for what will actually get into the game. Adaphosaurus. Adds a little bit of interesting variety to the herbivores. Adaphosaurus is one that, like, if it makes it in, I'll be perfectly happy to see it. Like, I won't mourn, my missing fellow too much. So, the next animal category is one I struggled with. I wanted to include kind of every major animal category in the game even if I don't necessarily think they might get something. So this is one I think very well we might not see this. And that's a new Pachycephalosaurid. I think we're really due for a new Pachycephalosaurid, but I think it's really hard to pick one that's interesting. So it's something I struggled with. My pick for what they'll put in is Stegosaurus. These are in a slightly different order for no reason. I think that if they're going to put in a new one, it'll be Stegosaurus. Why? Because it's kind of the most famous one that's left over. That's it. That's all. I don't think it's the most interesting one to put in, though. It's a little on the small side. Like, doesn't do anything special. There's not really anything that intriguing about it. What I would want to see in, which I think would be cooler, would be Alaskocephaly. Cephaly. No, yeah, cephaly. Jesus. I could speak. I could do words. Trust me. Alaskocephaly. This is a more Pachycephalosaurid-sized Pachycephala. Oh my god. This is a more Pachycephalosaurus-sized Pachycephalosaurid. Words are hard. So I think its larger size makes it more interesting to have in the game. It's a chance to do a more accurate version of a Pachycephalosaurus than the franchise version. Not that the franchise version is particularly bad in any way, except for maybe the posture is pretty bad. Other than that, design-wise, not too bad. The interesting things with this animal are, now this may shock you, brace yourself, it's from Alaska. And that does mean that it's actually like a polar animal. This comes from like the environment that Anuxosaurus is found in. So I think that would be neat, right? Having like another polar environment dinosaur. This is from the Prince Creek Formation where Troodon is dug up in the game. So this would be one of like 3 animals that are like polar environment, right? We got like Cryolophosaurus, and we've got, I don't even know if Cryolophosaurus counts as polar environment because it's early Jurassic. I'm not sure what the position of Antarctica. I think it's still really low, but it may not be, it may be subpolar in the Jurassic. I'm not sure. But then yeah, Prince Creek is polar. So the Troodon, at least the Troodon species that's dug up in Prince Creek in the game would be a polar species. So this would add to that. I think it'd be a really neat include. To differentiate this from the other Pachycephalosaurids, I think what they could do is add quills based on the Psittacosaurus fossils. So if we just, let's see. Can I do a thing? Yeah, if they just do some nice quills here on the tail like this to reference the Psittacosaurus specimens we have that show quills, that would be something to like make it unique compared to, Homalocephaly, Dracorex, Stygimoloch, and Pachycephalosaurus. We don't actually have any like tailed quill animals in the game, which is like it's another thing. It's a thing we know dinosaurs had, at least Psittacosaurus. So it's a thing that should show up in the game in some form because it's neat, distinctive, and it's cool. You'll see like you'll basically be able to find art of any given ceratopsian with quills. So there's other ways they could put quills in the game, right? If they do a new larger ceratopsian, they could put that on the tail. They could just put in fucking Stachosaurus, which is not a bad idea. Yeah, we'll talk about this more when we get to the ceratopsians, which I think they should be coming up here shortly. So yeah, that's my pick. That's my lock of the week for what I want to see. Alaskocephaly. Where do we put this there? Oops. And that's kind of a dark horse inclusion, maybe, because, like, who the fuck has ever actually heard of this thing? I never did. I was literally reading the Wikipedia entry for Pachycephalosaurids trying to find something to use, so if it doesn't make it in, I won't be shocked. Next, we need a Stegosaurid. This is the Mattel Miragaia. So Stegosaurids, again, were one I kind of struggled with. Like, what do I want for Stegosaurids? Not much comes to mind. What should they add? Not much comes to mind. Miragaia is probably the most iconic one. It is like interesting and unique. It's got like a really long neck, It's got a lot of spikes and spines along the back, a very like crowded spine with some like, nice big spikes on the backside and some more stegosaurian plates going on in some other spots. I don't think this is probably not the most accurate mirror guy, given that's just a toy, but it gives you a decent idea. So I think that's the most likely stegosaurid to make it in. Um, we'll put you, I don't know, here. That seems fine. Mirror guy is what I expect to make it in, and I also put it on my card because I think it's probably the best thing to add I can think of. Like, usually when I think stegosaurids, my mind goes to like stegosaurids that are missing from the game. My mind goes to Tujangosaurus, but Tujangosaurus isn't that interesting. So I'm gonna put Mirror Gaia is also my pick for what should get into the game. It's just the most visually distinctive, so it seems fine. Um, we also need ornithopods in games, so my pick for a ornithopod is Hadrosaurus proper. So Hadrosaurus is another animal that sticks in my craw not being in the game because, well, the obvious thing is it's a novel dinosaur, right? It's in the novel version of Jurassic Park. I want all the novel species, at least the 15 novel species from the actual park in the game, so that you can do, a novel park build without having to mod in species. So that's the first reason I want Hadrosaurus. The second reason, this fucker's film canon. This is from this is like a possibly a recreation of the prop. I've never been able to source if this is the genuine image, but the concept art used here is correct for the Hadrosaurus. And this is from the Lost World. This is in Roland Tembo's card packet, along with Corythosaurus. So both Hadrosaurus and Corythosaurus are on Sorno and are film canon animals. And this is part of why I don't think the DPG is canon, because the DPG misses this, but it's in the film, so the film's over, marketing material, right? That's why that is the Corythosaurus and Hadrosaurus are like the biggest reason why I don't think the DPG is canon, basically. So that's my pick. This was on my bingo card for JWE2 and it never came. I don't expect this to show up, but I would like it to. How about we put it here because there's already an H? That seems good. Hadrosaurus is also interesting because it's an East Coast US dinosaur. It's from like New Jersey, I think. We don't have like, do we have anything from the East Coast in game? I don't think so. But it's like there's a decent amount of dinosaurs on the East Coast. Not a huge amount, but like there's more than one. There's Hadrosaurus, there's I think Astrodon. I literally live near like one of the most active East Coast dig sites. And I've been there to do like surface fossil collecting at a public event once. It's pretty cool. In Maryland. Dinosaur Park, I think is what they call it. I forget. I'd have to look it up again. But yeah, if you're on the East Coast, you should make a trip out there to go look for shit. I actually found a fossilized claw that has my name on it in the museum collection. It's probably nothing. I'm sure nothing will ever come of it, but it's cool that it exists. That's neat. I don't think Hadrosaurus makes it in. I think it's kind of Hadrosaurus is usually presented as like this generic Hadrosaur, which is why I don't think it'll make it. It's kind of bland. I think there's a lot you can do with it. I think what I would like to see for Hadrosaurus, hooves on the front legs. Monosaurus is known to have hooves, but obviously in game it doesn't have little hoofies. So I would like to see a hadrosaur, a quadrupedal hadrosaur with proper little hoofies. And so my pick for that is, if we're putting Hadrosaurus in, we might as well give it the hooves to make it unique. So do that, give it the hoofies. That's what I want to see. I think more likely is to see something like Tenontosaurus. Tenontosaurus has this like more unique ornithopod body plan. It's not a hadrosaur. It's got like this longer tail. It's much more. It's like I believe it's completely quadrupedal. Maybe it's capable of also running bipedally. I don't know, but it's got this more like in between like primitive body plan. This is like early Cretaceous Deinonychus food. Pretty iconic and commonly like referred to animal. I think it's a great pick for what could be in the game. It's just not my pick. So I think that's the likely one. It's also pretty big, which is good because it wouldn't be another little thing hiding in the grass. Obviously, Hadrosaurus is also pretty big. So that's not a knock against Hadrosaurus. It's just another, like, boon to Denontosaurus, right? Next, we also, of course, need a sauropod. So I think in terms of sauropods they're likely to add, Argentinosaurus is pretty likely. It's the big sauropod, the biggest. Everybody fucking loves it. So I think that's what they'll add. They can also differentiate it from like the sauropods we have by giving it some sort of interesting back armor. Like the prehistoric kingdom one here has obviously like, I think it's a double row of these like armored spines sort of on the back. So they can do something there. Putting armor on a titanosaur is totally fine. We'll put this in. Do we have a row that's underpopulated? The middle row. We'll put it there. Let's not fill that row yet. Let's put it right here. It's a pretty famous sauropod. Yeah. Now, for me, this is not the one I'd want to see, because I think we have two titanosaurs, Alamosaurus and Dreadnoughtus. They have the very similar shapes and sizes to like Brachiosaurus in terms of being these like really big, thick-necked animals. I think I want to see something a little different. So we could have picked something small like Saltosaurus, which would be a little bit different, but also Saltosaurus is like, it's iconic. It'd be different than Nigersaurus and Armargosaurus, but it would still be in that like Nigersaurus and Margosaurus body plan. I don't think that's that interesting. What I want when I think of sauropods, I do want big. I think I do want another big sauropod. I want to see a big sauropod with a good fucking color palette. I mean, they can obviously change the colors for the ones we have, but something new would be cool too. My pick, Supersaurus. I like Diplodocids. They're underrepresented in the game. We've got Apatosaurus. We've got Diplodocus. Do we have anything else? I don't think so. Right? Everything else is like a Brachiosaurid, Rubacosaurid, Titanosaurid line animal. Macronarians. That's what there are, I think. I think that's the bigger grouping is Macronaria. So I think this would be a great include. This thing is like the longest sauropod. It's a big bastard. It is currently a valid genus separate from Diplodocus, but it is obviously a Diplodocid. This also has some franchise history with it, so in a few different directions. The Mamenchisaurus design in the Lost World is actually a Supersaurus. It's just called Mamenchisaurus basically as a holdover from scripting, but like the design is I believe it's okay. So the design is very obviously a Supersaurus visually. I believe there is actual behind the scenes confirmation that it was specifically modeled and created as a Supersaurus. At least the physical prop head that's not in the film was. The CGI model maybe is a little different. But the point is, the lines are blurred between Mamenchisaurus and Supersaurus, which is why we got the weird Mamenchisaurus we got in the Lost World. The other deep cut franchise lore that supports Supersaurus is Ultrasauros. So Ultrasauros was like this Brachiosaur style, but bigger sauropod that came out, that was like discovered and described in the 90s. And it made it into Jurassic Park The Ride. It's one of two new species that are in the Jurassic Park The Ride at like Universal Studios, like the original boat ride, like way back in the 90s or whenever the fuck it started. But spoilers, Ultrasauros isn't real. It's a chimera of different elements. One of the different elements that goes into Ultrasauros is Supersaurus material, and that makes Supersaurus semi-canon if you consider the semi-canon Jurassic Park The Ride to be canon. It's like 2 steps removed, but it's there. The connection's there. So that's my pick for a sauropod to add. I think it's also fairly likely. I think Supersaurus, Saltosaurus, and Argentinosaurus are all pretty likely additions to the sequel. I wouldn't be shocked to see any of them get in. But out of the 3, I pick Supersaurus, and I think Argentinosaurus is most likely. Now, I said Psittacosaurus, right? Earlier, brought it up talking about quills. These are the quills I'm talking about. This is actually the real-life colors of Psittacosaurus. We know this from an exquisite fossil. It's one of the most, like, well-described animals in the fossil record for dinosaurs. It's got some of the most specimens, some of the best specimens. And it's in the franchise. It's in Jurassic Park The Ride. It's the other Jurassic Park The Ride new species that was added. Obviously, the Jurassic Park The Ride design is very 90s and retro. It's not accurate to the current edition of the animal. But, yeah. So, Psittacosaurus is my pick for a ceratopsian to see in the game. It's a little redundant with Microceratus, which is what I think holds it back from actually making it in, so that's why it's only my pick. What I would like to see this real-life design with like this real life color palette and then just like a variant or just a skin for the Jurassic Park the Ride version. I'm perfectly happy to take this like green and red or orange color palette and just paste it onto like this model and just roll with that. Just so I can like do a park build that references Jurassic Park the Ride if I want to, or have that skin that references the ride, and also have just the real animal. That'd be great. So do that, Frontier, please. Oh, there's a P, but it's all like way up there. Let's leave that one alone. We'll put it up here in this corner. So Psittacosaurus is my choice. I don't think it's the most likely one to get in, though. I think the more likely animal to show up is Protoceratops. Very heavily requested. Body plan is much more unique than Psittacosaurus. It gives us another small ceratopsid without it just being reminiscent of Microceratus. I think both of these would be great additions to the game, but I would prefer Psittaco, and I think Proto is more likely. Again, I don't think it'd be surprising if both of these made it into the game. But yeah, I think there's also a lot of other ceratopsians you could pick. I think there's like Diabloceratops, Ionosaurus, Centrosaurus are all things that I think are completely reasonable. I'd love to see Centrosaurus. Also, it's not on the bingo card. No, like spoilers, it didn't make the cut, but it's one of the most common ceratopsians in the fossil record, and I'd really like it to be in the game. The problem is that it's not like that distinctive, right? It's like singular nose horn. It's a centrosaurian, right? So it's like that Styracosaurus singular nose horn, and then for the frill, it's got like downward curved horns over the front of the frill. It's not exactly exciting and jazzy. What they could do is again add this kind of quilling to it to make it stand out. Do something like that. Like I think basically any ceratopsian could be added to the game and made distinctive. Like you could take the most generic fucking ceratopsian that looks like something else in the game, and there's enough room to embellish it to make it distinctive. Also, a lot of the ceratopsians we have in game are not terribly accurate in terms of body proportions. So you could do that too and make it have that more like weird fucking rat-tailed ceratopsian style look to it. Totally valid. Of course, what sequel would be complete without some new types of dinosaurs? The obvious one that is missing that people want is prosauropods. Plateosaurus is the obvious inclusion. It's the one that always comes up in Reddit posts. Obviously, we've seen before that they do kind of mine Reddit posts for ideas. So I think we're likely to see prosauropods in the sequel. I think it's probably the most likely type of dinosaur to get added in terms of families that aren't in the game yet. So we got to have those on the bingo card. So Plateosaurus is my lock for what Frontier will actually add. What I want to see, though, is Mosaurus, because Mosaurus is in the Lost World novel. This is the only prosauropod to show up in the novel and the films. This is the Mattel toy here. Probably not the most accurate representation of the animal, but I'm actually not completely sure on that, so maybe I shouldn't shit on him. In the novel, it shows up as like a mouse-sized creature, which is not accurate to its real size, because that is like the fossil we have of this that gives it the name mouse lizard is like a fresh hatchling or an embryo, maybe even, or something, which is why it's so fucking tiny. The real animal, I believe, is thought to get pretty big. At least like large dog size or something, big enough to see in the grass, right? So I think it's a perfectly valid inclusion. I just think it's enough of a deep cut that they might not bother, because so far they haven't really given us any novel content. So Mosaurus is my pick. This was also, of course, on my bingo card for the DLCs. Next animal. Of course, we need an orthomimosaur. So I think the one they're likely to add is Pelecanomimus. It's pretty popular. It's got a silly name. It's got this unique, like, it's got teeth. It's got this unique, like, pouch thing going on. This unique, like, triangular head shape. Although the triangular head shape is kind of in, like, Archaeornithomimus, so it's not so unique. So I think Pelecanomimus is the thing they'd be most likely to add. We could put that up in this corner. Pelecanomimus, though... Oh, also, I should say, let's pop back to the image. This is not a great representation of how I think Pelecanomymus would look. I think the reason we need a new ornithomimosaurid is so it can be properly feathered, because we have 3 naked ornithomimosaurids, and then we have Deinocheirus, which is a non-traditional large-bodied ornithomimosaur. We need a traditional-bodied smaller one to be properly feathered, because it's a travesty that we don't have a properly feathered ornithomimosaurid in the game, like a true genuine like small-bodied ornithomimosaur, not Deinocheirus. So I think, yeah, that's why it should be in the game. What I want to see is not Pelecanomymus. I want to see Ornithomymus. Ornithomymus is less distinctive than Pelecanomymus. It's just another Struthiomimus or Gallimimus, but it's the one I want because it's a common animal in the fossil record. It is, I believe it is the first feathered fossil to come from North America. And so it's the one I want for like the kind of exhibits I want to build. I think Pelecanomymus is from like Spain or something weird. And you're not going to be building any exhibits for like those fossil formations because they don't really have enough diversity to like pull that out. Also, Ornithomymus showed up in Prehistoric Planet where he had this fucking awesome design with this like ridiculous haircut and the red feathers on the wings. And this is exactly what I want to see for a feathered Ornithomimosaur in this game. Kind of this like shaggier proto feathered looking stuff on the body, and then like properly like flight feathered wings, and like some sort of feathery embellishment on the head would be great, and like probably a tail fan of some sort. Yes, please do that. So that's my pick. Oh look, I even picked the one with the O. I didn't even notice. So I want Ornithomymus. I expect Pelecanomymus. After that, we need some other new animal types that are not in the game. So we're missing Alvarezsaurids. I can say this word. The one that has any franchise history is the Mononychus, which shows up as a statue in Fallen Kingdom. This is the unpainted behind the scenes look at it, and then the in-film screenshots here. Well, you don't get a great look at it, but you can see in the film that it's got like a little bit of a tail fan, but mostly is naked. It's got kind of an interesting color palette with like the red under the throat, and then this behind the scenes look at it gets a little bit better look. The big thing with Alvarezsaurids is they got these like itty bitty little like arms with like a single claw, and they're thought to be like specialized insect feeders. So this could be included in JWE2 also as something that expands upon insect feeders, because we only have Geolopterus for that. If they make insect feeders base game and they add more insectivores, they let the Ornithomimosaurids eat from them, they could make it pretty neat. Do a little bit of extra stuff there. Especially if they made like termite mounds and some more natural ways to feed, that'd be really cool. So I think we're likely to see Alvarezsaurids. So yeah, that's why I picked out Mononychus here. We also have most of the other animals from the Lockwood displays. We got Concavinator. We got right away Diplodocus and Dracorex. The Dracorex and Diplo even have designs that are reminiscent of the statues. I think the Concavinator too, but to a lesser degree. So I could see them wanting to finish the roster of the Lockwood statues. Also, these are not taxidermy. These are not film canon animals, just to be clear. But still, I could see that, making the cut. Looking at my spreadsheet, because I don't remember if this made the cut for me or if I decided. No, I decided on something different. So my choice for a small insectivore was not this. Let me add it to the bingo cards. So this goes on there as only. Put it, I don't know, here. So yeah, my bingo card is going to be missing Alvarezsaurids. I do think it's also possible they don't bother. I don't think we're likely to get as many small dinosaurs as we had been getting in the DLCs. That was just kind of a consequence, especially of all the small animals that were present in Dominion. And I think they'll probably move away from having so many tiny animals unless they make like tiny animal exhibits explicitly in the sequel. Because a lot of people gripe when you get small animals, and so I think they'll try to like minimize that a little bit. But I still think it's possible we'll see some. Just not, the amount we saw in JW2. My choice for a small animal, though, is Procompsognathus. Again, it's in the novel. This is a art from one of the books that actually has illustrated images in it, where they eat a baby because they're little bastards. Now, this is what I want to see in the game. If there's any animal I want to see that I am almost 100% certain we will not get, unless there's an explicit novel DLC, it's Procompsognathus. Because this is a very small Steelophycid. This is just Stegosaurus or Compsognathus, depending on like which direction you want to go with it. Compy, film Compy, and novel Compy are entirely different branches of the dinosaur family tree. Compsognathus is a Coelurosaurid. Procompsognathus is a Coelophycid. However, they still look very similar, which is why Procompsognathus was named Procompsognathus, because they thought it was like the direct ancestor originally. It's not. It's completely separate. Which happens all the time. Proceratosaurus, Ceratosaurus, also completely separate branches of the family tree, not remotely related to each other. Very funny. Stop naming animals pro other animal. I also feel like nobody does that anymore because it's obviously a trap. So yeah, this would be like, you know, another potential insectivore, small carnivore, unless they introduce eating crap into the game, because these guys were put in the novel park to eat all the dinosaur dung that was produced. Oh yeah, I know where I wanted these guys. Hold on, I'm gonna move them. These guys are supposed to go here, because this is where Procompsognathus was in the original bingo card, which is why it's skewed upward. So I'm going to put it there again. Spoilers. Not really spoilers, but... That way we got one that's locked in, like, the same place, right? Also, I don't have to, like, move the fucking thing down to make the bingo card not look weird, although I do have to do it here. So, I mean, like, what am I really doing with my life, right? So, Mononicus, does that even look correct? Placement wise, I'm too picky on this shit. It's fine. It's acceptable. Anyway, Procomp. Next up, more novel stuff. This is Othnielia, another animal in the original park. It is a small ornithopod. This is no longer a valid genus. It's been through a few changes. And Othnielia became Othnielosaurus, became Nanosaurus. However, if this makes it into the game, I want to see it with the original 80s name. I want it to be Othnielia. And I think that's perfectly valid for them to do, because we have things like Dracorex, and we're going to probably have Bechtel Spinax, and neither of those are valid names either. So just call it Othnielia. Fuck it. I want to be able to make a novel park with 15 animals with the accurate, like, late 80s names. So that's my pick for a small herbivore to put in the game. This can also be insectivorous. I think they were omnivorous or insectivorous in the novel. I think there's a call out to that specifically, but I don't remember for sure. Let's put you, yeah, small herbivore can go in this column, I think. Oh, Gothnielia. that's my new headcanon, Gothnielia. I don't think this is likely to make it in. My pick for an animal that would make it in, so Othnielia is pretty small. I think we are really due for another, like, Hypsilophodon body planned animal, right? Like the Dryosaurus that we have. Another ornithopod that's, like, you know, obligate biped, smaller arms, this body plan. So my pick for what will actually make it in is the Celosaurus. It's the larger one here on the side. You know, good Dryosaurus sized animal, a little bit smaller. They can give it some feathering to make it distinctive. And the other reason I put the Celosaurus is it's an extremely common animal in the Cretaceous period. It's, you know, in the Cretaceous period and like the late Cretaceous, which separates it immensely from Dryosaurus in time. So I think it's a really good include. It's another animal that I would be happy to see in the game. It's just not my pick because I want, you know, the novel canon stuff first. So that, yeah, that's the one there. Where the hell did I put this fella? Right there. So they're kind of in the same category. The Celosaurus. Next up, another smaller nithopod, Hypsilophodon. So, in the novel, there is the Hypsilophodontid population count in Paddock. And the novel explicitly mentions that the Hypsilophodontids are, or at least includes, Dryosaurus. So you actually cannot explicitly say that Hypsilophodon is in the first novel. My personal interpretation of the fact that the population count is referred to as the population count in species is referred to as Hypsilophodontids is that it's actually mixed species that they just don't bother to differentiate. Some of them are Dryosaurus, some of them are other things. Where Hypsilophodon actually comes in is it's explicitly in the Lost World, right? And furthermore, the presence of Hypsilophodon in the Lost World retroactively feeds back into the original novel and supports the notion that there were multiple Hypsilophodontids in that, population count, in that tally. So I consider it part of the original park because of that. The weird thing, like, I don't know if Othniel was considered a Hypsilophodontid. Maybe it was considered separate, which is why it wasn't counted in that population count. Maybe Othnielia was a little more distinctive in novel canon, which is why it also got separated. I don't know. Who knows? These guys were also arboreal in the novel, which would be a really cool. Well, the Othies were arboreal. I don't know. I don't remember if the Hypsilophodons were actually. Now I can't remember. Well, anyway, having an arboreal dinosaur, even if it's unrealistic, be it the Othies or the Hypsilophodons, would be really cool. Just have them interact with trees, climb up them. That'd be sick. Um, so I think Hypsilophodon is also like a very iconic dinosaur. The name was the name of a group of dinosaurs that has since been obliterated because it turns out Hypsilophodontids are not a thing. It's just kind of the default earlier ornithopod body plan, and they kind of just pop up all over the family tree. You actually can't group them all together and say they're a special class. They're scattered. There's like special classes within that, but the overarching this is a Hypsilophodontid is just not a thing. But it still remains an iconic animal with a very distinctive name. I think it's a reasonable include for both what I want, and I think it could make it into the game. It's a little on the small side, but we're going to go ahead and slap it in there. Let's put it down here in the middle. I don't think it's terribly likely to get in, but I think it's plausible enough to put it on the card, and I don't think there's any other small herbivores that would be any more likely than it to get in, basically. So I'm willing to slap it on both bingo cards. I think that's fine. We got just a few more animals. We got another film canon animal coming up here at the end, late. Deinosuchus. So this is in a deleted scene from Fallen Kingdom and is part of the Indominus Rex genome. So I guess it's debatably film canon. However, I will be shocked if we don't get a proper crocodilian in the sequel. And again, this ties back into my hope that the lagoons are loosened up a little bit and we can see actual proper amphibious animals. And Deinosuchus or some other crocodiliform would be a perfect include in that case for an animal that can both transition in and out of water. So I think Deinosuchus it's an animal I'd like to see because it's got that film presence. And I think it's an animal we're also likely to see. It's possible we'd see like the larger Sarcosuchus instead, but I feel like Deinosuchus is the popular one. So I think that's the one we're likely to see. That's my opinion. Where should we put Deinosuchus? We could put it by Smilodon, I guess. There's not many choices left, so let's just slap it over there, I guess. I believe this was on my previous DLC bingo card as well. So Deinosuchus, and finally the last slot is kind of a wild card slot. So my pick for the wild card slot, Ornitholestes. This is a small to medium-ish carnivore, more on the small side. It's got some novel presence, although I think it's actually so in the novel, in the second novel, there is a dinosaur carcass or a dinosaur sample that washes up on a beach or something like that. I forget exactly the context. Point is, there is some part of a dinosaur that is sent to a lab, exhibits chameleon tendencies and tentatively identified as a Ornitholestes. I think it's probably actually a Carnotaurus chunk or like a juvenile Carnotaurus or something like that that's been disfigured and can't be identified, or a Velociraptor, because both the Carnotaurs and Velociraptors exhibit chameleon capabilities in the novel. So I don't really consider Ornitholestes to be canon to the novel. I think it's dubious canon. It could be canon. It just I don't see it as confirmed. However, I would like it in the game anyway. So boom, Ornitholestes. Um, why do I think I missed an animal? I feel like I missed one. Wait, how many bingo card slots do we have left? We have two left. Oh, I know what I missed. I don't know how I missed it. I know what it is though. So yeah, I'll correct that in a moment. Okay, Ornitholestes. So this makes it in on my bingo card. I don't think there's much motivation directly to add Ornitholestes to the game. Again, it's an animal that I could see happen. It's also a fairly unique animal in terms of its evolutionary history. This is from the Jurassic, but I believe it's ambiguous kind of where this falls in the carnivore or the carnivore, the theropod family tree. So in this depiction from Wikipedia here, it's actually very raptor-like, including like the claw. And I think that is supported that it might actually be like an early, somewhere early, like on the raptor divergence of the tree, or just somewhere early on the Coelurosaurians in general, maybe an early diverging, its own thing that doesn't go anywhere in the long run, something like that. But it should be feathered, and so yeah, this could be a nice addition. It's a way too for us to get like potentially a smaller quote unquote raptor without it just being a raptor. Like a little bit different, but still in the wheelhouse, right? I think it would be a good include. What I opted to put in place in this wildcard slot for what actually makes it in is not a carnivore, but Lesothosaurus. I I debated this a little bit. I was like, do I really think this is gonna make it in? It's a little guy, like, and I think at the end of the day, don't I don't know if I really think I don't this will make it in. So I don't know why I'm putting on the bingo card. I guess I'm kind of hedging my bets, right? These are both animals I was debating the inclusion of, and I kind of ended up splitting them, one on each card. But the thing with Lesothosaurus, the DPG considers this a film canon animal. I think I think the sequel will want to include, if not right away in DLCs, some additional film canon animal as a selling point. And so I could see them going to the DPG list. Now, I know that I talked about Pleuropleides and Teratophonius being film canon and how those didn't make it onto the actual Frontier bingo card, and I put them on my card, right? And now I'm arguing that they're going to want film canon animals so that I can put something on Frontier's card. The difference being that Teratophonius and Pleuropleides are not on the DPG list. Lesothosaurus is. And I think at the end of the day, Frontier is more likely to look at the DPG list and take that than they are to look at behind the scenes information about what carcass was in Fallen Kingdom. So I think Frontier would be more likely to put in Lesothosaurus over Pleuropleides or Teratophonius. And I want the opposite to be true. So we're going to put it on the bingo card. I don't expect it actually to happen, but I want it to be there somewhere. Again, Lesothosaurus kind of suffers from the issue of being another kind of like Hypsilophodontid style animal. So there's kind of too many of those on here. Like 3 of them. There's no way we get all of these. You know what? Let's do this. Let's say rather than the Hypsilophodon, they go with Lesothosaurus. And then I'm going to find another animal here at the end of this video to put here in the wildcard slot. We're not, yeah, I think that's better. I think it's too many Hypsilophodontid style animals otherwise. Okay. And then the animal that I missed somehow when I was setting this up. I even have the image ready to go. Let's pop over to this. Where did it go? I just moved it over and then I fucking lost it. Let's just do it again. Okay, we'll do it again. There it is. Oh god, he's enormous. Well, that's fine. So this is the Mattel Soluris. So the reason I have Soluris included It also again falls into kind of the same position as Ornitholestes of being this like Jurassic early Coelurosaurid that's kind of mysterious and doing its own thing. So that's interesting to have this interesting Jurassic era carnivore. It is on the DPG list, which makes it possibly film canon, and it's kind of novel canon. So the novel has this mention of Coelurosaurus eggs. Yeah, the original novel, Jurassic Park. And Coelurosaurus is not a thing. So that's usually taken to be Coelurus, which is easily confused with Coelurosaurus as a thing, right? It's easy to see how the mistake would be made. Maybe Coelurosaurus was even a thing at one point in time. I don't remember. So that's why I picked this. A nice, smallish, medium-ish carnivore that can just... Oh, that's where this went. Get that out of here. A nice, smallish carnivore that can easily go into the game that I would like to see in the game. So this goes on both bingo cards. Coelurus. I think this was on my original bingo card as well. So bringing it back here, perfectly reasonable. Okay, I need to decide what this last slot's going to be. Give me some time to think. Let's pause this shit. You know what? Harkening back to our earlier Ceratopsid discussion, I think another good include for the wildcard slot on the Frontier inclusion would be a new Ceratopsid. I said I wanted Centrosaurus. I don't think they'll do Centrosaurus. I think they'll look for something else. I think one potential thing they could look for is this guy, Diabloceratops, because it's got a really cool name, really easy to sell. I could see them like do Diabloceratops and give it like a demonic fucking red and black color palette or something, and like, oh my god, he's the demon Ceratopsian. Wow. Like, I think it's marketable, right? So that's what I'm going to put into this like wild card slot here. And then we get a proper large-bodied Ceratopsian on at least one of these cards too, which we don't have otherwise. So, boom. Diabloceratops right there. And there's our completed bingo cards. So, once the reveals for the sequel start happening and we start to see more for it, we can go ahead and start checking these off and see who wins, me or me. Me or my wishes or my expectations. And of course, if JWE3 ends up not actually being a thing, and we just get like Jurassic World Park Builder Redux without, the Evo 3 tag, that's still JWE3. That's the same fucking game, man. I guess the wild card thing would be if they like completely rebuild it from scratch and don't reuse the roster, then that would be insane. But I mean, who knows what'll happen, right? All right. Anyway, this video took way longer than I was expecting, so we better wrap this shit up. Until next time.